Chapter 61. The Creation of Heaven and Earth. Cyrenius nevertheless asks me for continuation of the Genesis interpretation by correspondences. And I say, Friend, what I started I shall also finish, but see to it that you are able to grasp it just now, and before time. Because in order to grasp Moses' Genesis properly, one has to be well initiated into man's nature, which is just as hard to achieve as the right and full knowledge of God. Wherefore, I should first have to go into man's detailed material, psychological, soul, and spiritual structure from fibre to fibre, and finally show how the psychological soul first develops from the spiritual and the material from the psychological, and by what countless correspondences, which relate to the countless shades of light as well as lightlessness. From this you can see that this is not as easy and quick as you expect, but I shall nevertheless tell you as much as you can bear initially, and in proportion to your soul experience and pre-schooling. And so hearken. When Moses says, "In the beginning God created heaven and earth," then Moses does not by any means want this to be understood as applying to the visible sky and the visible material earth. For as a true sage, this did not occur to him, in that he only had in his lucid mind the fullest inner truth always. But this deeper wisdom he clothed in corresponding images, just as for a testimony he had to veil his shining face threefold before the people. By heaven, however, which Moses indicates as having been created first, is meant that God has placed the intelligence ability, once and already during that time, outside of his most eternal, spiritually most purified centre. As it were, out of himself, but as said, only the intelligence ability. This is akin to a mirror, which also in the darkest night has the ability to reflect external objects in it, or rather to collect them faithfully and true upon its smoothest surface and reproduce them. However, in the deepest night and hence complete absence of objects, the mirror is obviously a completely useless item. Hence Moses, straight after the externalization of heaven, or the intelligence ability outside of God's life center, speaks of a, so to say, simultaneous creation of the earth. Who and what is this mosaic earth? You shall say, well, the one carrying us. Oh, greatly mistaken, my beloved. Behold, by earth, Moses meant only the assimilative and attraction abilities of the among each other related, externalized intelligences, which is almost the same, what the worldly wise Egyptians and Greeks called association of ideas, connection of thoughts, where out of related concepts and ideas ultimately a truth-filled sentence has to emerge. If, however, the relatedness and mutual attraction was already incorporated within the intelligence abilities externalized by God, then the third conclusion automatically follows, that the kindred attracted and seized each other in actuality, for which deeply spiritual process Moses obviously could not have chosen a more appropriate image than that of the material earth, which in actuality is nothing else but a conglomerate of many in itself related substantial particles with the ability to attract one another. But darkness was upon the face of the deep, says Moses. Furthermore, did Moses really want to indicate the lightlessness upon the newly created earth? I say unto you that not even in his very first most foolish beginnings would the wise Moses have dreamt of such. For Moses was a deep initiate into world nature, and too well initiated into deepest Egyptian wisdom and science to not know that the earth, an offspring of the central sun, is at least 1 billion times 1 billion earth years younger than the mother sun, and could not have been in darkness at earth's coming into being. Moses rather indicating therewith, again through imagery, that the abilities of intelligence and attracting relationship of the intelligence was not yet any kind of cognition, understanding, or self-consciousness, all of which is identical to the concept of light, but that it must result in the contrary until they seize each other, then pressurizing and rubbing each other and, as it were, fighting each other. Have you ever noticed what takes place when stones or wood are vigorously rubbed against each other? Behold, fire and light emerge. And behold, this is the light that Moses lets come into being in the beginning.